Hey folks, welcome back to the Jlambcast Mma Show. I know I've been kind of been lax the past couple of weeks about getting content out there, but I'm here now. So another episode, a lot to break down since I've been gone for the past 3 weeks now. We just had UFC 263 happen this weekend. A lot to unpack from that. It was a stellar card, very entertaining, top to bottom for the UFC's pay-per-view. And then, golly, we also had Jake Paul and Floyd Mayweather, like a lot of things to unpack. Yeah, let's get into it. Let's take a look at what happened in the pay-per-view, and I'll give you my breakdown on that. There we go. UFC 263, the main event. Israel Adesanya facing Marvin Vettori, part 2 of their rivalry. A lot of hype around this one for the second time around. Some very few people thought that Vettori won their first fight against Adesanya. He definitely took him into deeper waters than Adesanya's faced in his UFC career. But yeah, Vettori, second time around, I think it was very clear Israel Adesanya put on a huge performance. Didn't get the finish, but definitely got the unanimous decision victory. So that was a great 5-rounder. Let's just start off with the early prelims. Now I wanna show you something here. Like early prelims, this is before you even get to the ESPN prelims. I mean, look at the names that you've had on here. Chase Hooper, building great young fighter, building a name for himself. Kind of the uniqueness about him is that, he kind of looks a little bit like Ben Askren. He goes around saying that he's Ben Askren's son. So, but he's been building a lot of hype from himself. He lost his fight against Steven Peterson. Hooper, again, a victim of his own circumstance, being young, not being physically strong, and not being experienced when it comes to the stand-up game. I know that he's been working down there in South Carolina with Wonder Boy. Wonder Boy's teams kind of develop a karate style, which I think would work for Chase Hooper because he's very tall, very lengthy, and that side stance, kind of like how Wonder Boy does with that poking league leg to keep and manage distance would serve Chase Hooper well. I just don't think he's had enough experience in that yet, especially at this UFC level. Steven Peterson came in. You see right there it says unanimous decision victory, 3 minutes. It was absolutely unanimous. Steven Peterson came in and established very early on that he was the stronger fighter. He was the more experienced fighter, and he was not going to put himself in any danger. There were a couple times where Chase Hooper chased a couple of submissions, but I don't think Steven Peterson was any real danger during that fight. But Chase Hooper absolutely growing into a fan favorite, win or lose, and back to the drawing board, get a little bit more experience in the stand-up game. We'll see where you're at next time, kiddo. Next up, Matt Steamroller Favola and Terrence McKinney. Terrence McKinney, that was a huge KO knockout, 7 seconds. I believe they said on the broadcast that it was the fastest KO in lightweight division history. Of course, fastest knockout goes to Jorge Masvidal with his flying knee at 5 seconds, 4 seconds. I can't remember exactly which one it is. The feature on the UFC early prelims was Pannie Kianzad versus the ageless Alexis Davis. That was a wonderful fight. This is before you even get into the meat and potatoes of not even the main card, but just the prelims. Like, this was a stacked early prelims card. Pannie Kianzad ends up getting the victory there. I mean, a case could have been made for Alexis Davis, but I'm not going to argue with the unanimous decision. Did the judges get it right? Sure, but I could see where Alexis Davis could have been favored in a few rounds, but not to take away from Kianzad's victory. They both look great, and that was an awesome fight to watch. Moving on to the prelims. Movsar Ivolev versus Akeem Dawodu. Ivolev, and I'm probably not saying that right, which is a commonplace here at the Jlambcast, so I'm not going to get any of those right. He got the victory, featherweight bout, unanimous decision. Next up was Lauren Murphy versus Jojo Calderwood. Jojo Calderwood looked good. Lauren Murphy looked good. I think Lauren Murphy has definitely established herself now as that next in line. I would have said either one of these girls because they have not fought the champ at flyweight. I would say either one of these would be a great number one contender. I love JoJo. I just love her voice. Like, she's from Scotland, has that Scottish accent, but she also talks very soft and sweet, and almost sounds like a Scottish second grade teacher. But she didn't get it done. Lauren Murphy, who is great. She trains out of Houston. She trains side by side with the Black Beast, Derek Lewis. So I like both of these fighters going into this fight. So Lauren Murphy, my prediction, she's next up. She's next up to get that title opportunity. Does she win? I don't know, but I'm gonna say that if it happens, if it's the next fight, then we'll do a breakdown on that. I'm not gonna give you any early predictions. All right. Moving up, Eric Anders, light heavyweight bout against Darren Stewart. Eric Anders just pieced Darren Stewart up for 3 rounds and got the unanimous decision victory. Now, with this fight, Eric Anders, who is absolutely a nice guy, has a football background, played at the University of Alabama, has national championship under Nick Saban. He hasn't shown me enough to ever say that he is going to be a title contender. He is a very dimensional, I'm not going to say one-dimensional, but he doesn't have a lot of intricacies to his fight game. He basically stands in that southpaw stance, and he's trying to set up that left hand at all times. You don't really see him switch stance. You don't really see him go for the takedown. He likes to use the fence a little bit, but Eric does seem like a very easy fighter to figure it out. And those who have figured it out have exploited that and made Eric Anders look like a very inexperienced fighter. Darren Stewart has a ton of hype coming behind him. I really would have thought that this one could have gone the other way had Darren Stewart stuck to the game plan. And I don't think with a fighter like Anders, no disrespect, but I mean, the proof is in the tape, and if you follow the tape, Darren Stewart absolutely had the tools to get that victory. He did not get it done. Eric Anders looked great. He kept Darren Stewart at bay. He hit him pretty good with a couple of shots, had him rocked a couple of times, but ultimately went to a decision. So moving on, the feature bout on the prelims was Brad Riddell versus Drew Dober. And that was an awesome fight. Drew Dober looked awesome. Brad Riddell looked awesome. Unanimous decision. I mean, I wouldn't have been mad if this fight would have went to a draw. It looked great. Drew Dober was rocking Brad Riddell. Brad Riddell was rocking Drew Dober. I mean, it was just as good old JR would say from the old WWF days. This was a slobber knocker, and I love that fight. That was probably, that was my second favorite fight of the night, aside from the co-main event, which we'll get into. But I would say it's probably 1 and 1A. 1A being Drew Dober, Brad Riddell. Awesome fight, awesome performance. If you do have ESPN Plus, go back, watch that fight. It is absolutely exciting. I'm gonna plan to go back and watch it again, because in the moment it was very intense. All right, main card. Let's get into it. Very first fight on the pay-per-view was another Scottish person, Scotlandite. What do we call him? Another Scotland native, Paul Craig, light heavyweight bout against Jamal Hill. He gets a TKO victory. It probably should have been, it was stopped. I'm not sure if they stopped it because of the injury or they stopped it because Jamal Hill was taking a ton of punishment. But Paul Craig had a nasty arm lock on Jamal Hill that actually broke his arm. I don't know. It was not broken. Later it was confirmed that Dana White did say that it was a dislocation. It was nasty looking. You could tell when he was almost in a triangle position. Paul Craig had an arm lock, let go of the arm lock, and was just piecing, Jamal Hill up from the bottom, just throwing a ton of punches. But Jamal Hill's arm still was just flopping around when that was happening. So you knew something was wrong. But the damage, whenever the referee finally stopped it, you could definitely see it was nasty. I have a picture pulled up here. Let's pull that up. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can see right in there. That is not natural. So, yeah, he had him in this triangle position. Paul Craig throwing them fists back and forth right there. And this arm was just flopping in the wind. So, but apparently Jamal Hill did state later on that he went to the hospital. They were able to put it right in. He should be fine. It looked a lot more gruesome than apparently it really is. Hill's very optimistic that he'll be back into training in no time and won't have to suffer any long-term effects or go under the knife or anything like that for that injury. So props to Hill for being so tough. Props to Craig for the win, and I wish Hill the best in his recovery, and hopefully we see him back soon, because I don't think this stops his hype train at all. And it only furthers hypes up Paul Craig and his pursuits of getting into the top 10 and facing off and trying to make himself a contender. So next up on the fight was Damian Maia, another ageless wonder, versus Bilal Muhammad. Bilal Muhammad, the last time we saw him was facing Leon Edwards, who was in the feature bout. Bilal, that fight got stopped because of an accidental eye poke, and unfortunate for him. but he comes right in against still a strong name, and Damian Maia, respected name, and really took it to him. Damian Maia, of course, known as the probably the best submission specialist in the UFC, arguably. Welterweight division, yeah, probably. But I think at this point it's time for him to hang it up. This was the last fight on his contract. Bilal Muhammad looked great. He absolutely looked like the superior fighter there. Not much more to say on that one. So up into the next fight, which was the one I was looking forward to the most. And I'm sure everybody was, because Nate Diaz is a enigma of sorts. I mean, anytime Nate Diaz can be mentioned and he hasn't fought in 6 months, and you're paying attention to the headlines. Not as much as a Conor McGregor, but Nate Diaz is up there in that realm, in that spectrum of personalities. So Diaz and Leon Edwards. Leon pieced him up for, I would say, 24 minutes. Leon, it was almost like both of these fighters had two different agendas. So Nate Diaz had, I'm going to put on a show agenda. Leon Edwards said, I'm making a statement and I want to make a title run agenda. Leon Edwards came in and just did what he does. I mean, he looked every bit, he looked fresh for all 5 rounds and pieced Nate Diaz up. Not that Nate Diaz was in any real trouble. I mean, the most trouble that Nate Diaz is ever going to be in a fight is what we saw in the BMF fight, where that scar tissue just opens up and Nate Diaz starts bleeding for days, and that was every bit this fight here. It just didn't get stopped. Herb Dean let it go, and Nate Diaz, waited until minute 24, the 4th minute in the 5th round, and caught Leon Edwards and had him on wobbly legs, but there just wasn't enough time. Bell rings, ultimately unanimous decision victory. What Nate Diaz did in the last round absolutely earned him that round, so it was 4 rounds to 1. Leon Edwards gets the victory. Leon Edwards sets himself up to potentially be the next man up after Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington 2 happens. But does Leon Edwards take another fight in between? That, I guess we'll have to wait to find that one out. Well, as Dana White says it, we'll see how that plays out. So, good fight. The next one, this is absolutely the story of the night. Brandon Moreno versus Davison Figueiredo. Just a few short months ago, they fought to a draw. Davison Figueiredo, doesn't get it done this time. Brandon Moreno, and what a good story. What a good story by Brandon Moreno. So, he was on the Ultimate Fighter Latin America. He was the last fighter pick. Last one. Ends up winning it. Fights a couple times in the UFC, then gets cut. And pretty much turns everything around on the local circuit. Comes back to the UFC, and look at him now. First Mexican-born, UFC champion. Congrats to him. A huge emotional moment in the cage after he won the title. He's so humble and just such a nice guy. And Davison Figueiredo was very honorable after the loss, and let Brandon Moreno have that moment and congratulated him. It was a wonderful rivalry fight and just a wonderful moment there. So congrats to Moreno. I'm excited to see where it could go from there. And I think between Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno, we haven't seen this type of excitement in the flyweight division in a good long while. It's been a while. So, maybe these guys can do what Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson couldn't do as far as keeping the hype in the division. Mighty Mouse is just not a personality type guy. He's not, and that's not to say he's not exciting, because every bit of what he does inside the cage is exciting. I don't know. I don't get that. But seeing, maybe because he just didn't have a rivalry that was close enough, and maybe Mighty Mouse is just that great. But yeah, Moreno and Figueiredo, maybe this is the rivalry that reignites the flyweight division. Certainly the past couple of months from the first fight to this fight was super exciting. I think the most exciting part about it was that Moreno won by submission on Figueiredo. So huge fight. So that moves into the main event. Like I said, Israel Adesanya got it done against Marvin Vettori. Post-fight, I guess we started hearing from Paulo Costa, who just pulled out of his fight, later this year. I think it's in August, but was calling to meet Marvin Vettori. Well, if you can't even get into the cage when you're scheduled to, and you're calling somebody out, what does that say? Yeah, I don't know about that one. Vettori, where does he go? He had his title opportunity. He's lost to the champ twice. I don't see him getting another title opportunity. But I think there's still plenty of middleweight fights for him to take. Certainly, I guess the Costa one would make sense. Kelvin Gastelum would make sense. Cannonier. There's plenty of people for Vettori to fight. Israel Adesanya, that's the one. That's absolutely Robert Whittaker is next for Izzy. And I couldn't be more excited for this fight, because after what we saw from Robert Whittaker against Kelvin Gastelum, something tells me this is going to be a whole different fight than what we saw in their first fight. Not necessarily saying the result's going to be different, but I'm going to say that it's going to be a lot more competitive than what we saw from before. So, yeah, that was it. That was a great pay-per-view. I had a lot of fun watching it, and that sets us up for 3 weeks from now when we get to see Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier trilogy figured out. Next week, Saturday, June 19th at the Apex, we have a fight night. UFC fight night. Jung versus Ige. Chan Sung Jung versus Dan Ige. Number 6 ranked featherweight versus number 4 ranked featherweight versus number 8. That's a interesting fight. Alexei Oleinik versus Sergey Spivak. Marlon Vera versus Davy Grant. Julian Erosa versus Sing Woo Choi. Wellington Turman. Bruno Silva. Matt Brown versus Diego Lima. Matt the Immortal Brown versus Diego Lima. Let me get that one right. I'm surprised. Matt Brown has a name, and he is the very first fight on the main card on that one. But, yeah. I guess guess that's the way maybe they're just trying to push some of these younger people like Wellington Turman, like Julian Erosa, like Davy Grant, and Marlon Chito Vera is not really that young, but Sergey Spivak, certainly a younger, exciting fighter. So we got this card. I wouldn't say the casual fan might not be as hyped about this fight, but there's absolutely some killers in here. This Casey O'Neill versus Lara Procopio. That should be fun. Kalen Williams versus Matthew Semelsberger. That one should be fun. Danny Gay. The main event's going to be exciting, I think. Marlon Vera versus Davy Grant. Sure. So, and Matt Brown. That's probably the most intriguing one for me right there is Matt Brown versus Diego Lima. So, good stuff next week. Or I'm sorry, this weekend. So, that brings me to talk about oh God, what happened with Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul, right? Was it Logan? It wasn't Jake. Yeah, it was Logan. Okay, they fought. Was it entertaining? Yeah. I guess if you are a Floyd Mayweather fan, it was absolutely entertaining. If you're a Logan Paul fan, I don't think it was all that entertaining. Overall, I mean, what did we see? Logan Paul, outweighs Floyd Mayweather by, 30, 40 pounds. Has a height and reach advantage. Does not have the experience. Ultimately has no business being in there with Floyd Mayweather. This was a prize fight. This was This is what they used to do in Pride. Butterbean versus, a former wrestler in a mixed martial arts fight. I mean, that's kind of the way I viewed it. It was a freak show. Mayweather looked like Mayweather. He actually looked better than what Mayweather normally looks at because Mayweather wasn't afraid to get hit by this guy. Mayweather actually threw a lot more punches than I thought he would. He absolutely ran less than Mayweather's fight against Manny Pacquiao. I don't think it didn't look like a better and more exciting fight than a Conor fight, and the Conor fight had excitement for maybe 2 rounds before it kind of fizzled out. I mean, it almost happened in the same fashion. Like, Logan Paul, and if I called him Jake, well, I'm not sorry, but whatever. But he came out and he's trying to set everything up off of the jab, staying long. That's absolutely should have been his game plan the entire time. And then he saw the opportunity after towards the end of the first round and just completely blitzed Floyd Mayweather, and it was the absolute adrenaline dump that you should not do against a fighter like that. And he paid for it for the rest of the fight. So, that's about it. Do I care to see Logan Paul in a boxing ring anymore? Not really. Do I care to see Floyd Mayweather in a boxing ring anymore? No, probably not. I don't think there's anything that's going to excite me enough to want to spend $50, $60, $70, $80 on anything with Mayweather back in the ring. I just don't think I would watch it, nor am I interested. And let me say, they did this on Showtime, which is much better production value than what's that other Triller where Jake Paul fought Ben Askren. Yeah, much better production value. You get a much more sober broadcasting team and less of them. More credible. That's not to say they didn't have their moments of being annoying as shit, but such is life now. But yeah, overall, better production value, better way the whole thing was set up. So hopefully, Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. I'm going to give that one the benefit of the doubt, and I will watch that one. Am I excited about it? No. Do I think it'll be better than Ben Askren? 100% better. Am I telling you to buy it? Not really. But anyways, we'll cover that because we're going to cover all the important stuff and not important stuff and things that annoy me and things that make me laugh and things that make me cry. We're going to cover it all. But yeah, so hopefully you won't see me in another 3 weeks. Hopefully I'll be back next Monday again. We'll kind of recap a little bit of Zhang and Ige, cover some of the fight news going on around, and preview the next fight night. We'll see you next time, folks.